Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the computer screen in front of him. Another day, another pile of mining reports to review. The asteroid mining station Zeta 7 was his home now, had been for almost 7 years. He didn't mind the work. The pay was good, and someone had to make sure the miners stayed safe while they dug valuable minerals out of space rocks. The alarm on his desk buzzed suddenly. Jake frowned and tapped the screen. An unauthorized ship had just landed near the main habitat dome. His heart beat faster. Unscheduled arrivals were never good news this far from civilized space. Pirates, smugglers, or worse could be waiting outside. "Danny, get over here," Jake called to his assistant. Danny Cooper appeared in the doorway within seconds, his young face already showing concern. "What's wrong, boss?" "Unknown ship just landed. Grab your scanner and come with me. Tell the others to stay inside until we know what's happening." They walked quickly through the corridor toward the airlock. Jake could see other miners peeking out from their rooms, curious and worried. He gave them a firm look that said to stay put. When they reached the airlock window, Jake stopped so suddenly that Danny almost ran into him. Standing outside was the tallest alien Jake had ever seen in person. The creature stood at least 8 feet tall, covered in red scales that gleamed under the station's external lights. Golden eyes glowed in a reptilian face, and massive wings were folded against its back. Jake recognized the species immediately. Draconeer. Dragon people. Warriors and traders known throughout the galaxy for their pride and fighting skills. But something was wrong with this picture. The Draconeer male stood with his head lowered, his posture showing submission rather than the usual proud bearing of his kind. Behind him, a female Draconeer moved slowly, clearly struggling. Her green scales looked dull and lifeless. Her wings dragged on the ground. "Is she pregnant?" Danny whispered. Jake nodded slowly. The female's belly was swollen, and she moved with the careful steps of someone carrying precious cargo. But she also looked weak, dangerously weak. The male Draconeer raised one clawed hand and knocked on the airlock door. The sound echoed through the metal corridor. Jake took a deep breath and pressed the communication button. "This is Foreman Jake Morrison. State your business." The Draconeer male spoke in broken standard, the common language used for space trade. "Please, need help. Mate hungry. Ship broken. Food gone 3 days. She dying. Baby's dying." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Behind him, Danny made a small noise of surprise. The Draconeer were proud beings. For one to beg like this meant true desperation. "Boss, we can't let them in," Danny said quietly. "You know the history. Draconeer and humans fought wars 20 years ago. What if it's a trick?" Jake understood the concern. Border conflicts between human colonies and Draconeer territories had killed thousands on both sides. Many humans still didn't trust them. But looking at the female Draconeer's trembling legs and the fear in the male's golden eyes, Jake saw only desperation, not deception. "Open the airlock," Jake ordered. "But boss, that's an order." "Danny, I won't let a pregnant female die outside our door because of old wars." Danny pressed the controls reluctantly. The airlock door hissed open. The male Draconeer helped his mate through the opening, supporting most of her weight. Up close, they were even more impressive and frightening. The male's claws could tear through steel. His teeth were sharp enough to bite through bone. But his hands were gentle as he guided his mate to a nearby bench. She collapsed onto it with a grateful sigh. "Thank you," the male said, bowing his head again. "I am Vrax. This is Syria, my mate. We traveled to Colony World. Ship systems failed. No food synthesizer. She must eat soon or babies die inside her." Jake noticed that other miners had gathered in the hallway now, watching with wide eyes. Some looked scared. A few looked angry. He understood their feelings, but he also understood what needed to be done. "I'm Jake Morrison, foreman of this station. Can your mate walk?" "Our mess hall isn't far." "I can walk," Syria said suddenly. Her voice was weak, but her standard was much better than her mate's. "I will walk. Thank you for your kindness, human." The journey to the mess hall took 10 minutes. Syria moved slowly, leaning heavily on Vrax. Jake led the way, very aware of the nervous miners who pressed themselves against the walls as the dragons passed. He kept his expression calm and confident, hoping it would help others stay calm too. The mess hall was mostly empty. It was mid-shift, so most miners were working. The few people eating lunch stared with open mouths as 2 Draconeer entered the room. Jake saw Lisa Martinez, the cook, freeze in place behind the serving counter. "Lisa, I need you to prepare food. High protein, lots of it." "Can you do that?" Lisa nodded slowly, still staring at the dragons. What do they eat? Meat, Saria answered before Jake could respond. Any meat, fish, chicken, beef, we eat what you eat. Our biology is similar enough. Get everything we have, Jake told Lisa. This is a medical emergency. Lisa disappeared into the kitchen. Jake helped Saria sit at one of the reinforced tables meant for heavy equipment. Vrax stood beside her, one clawed hand resting on the weapon at his belt. Jake noticed this and felt a flash of concern, but he understood. Vrax was protecting his mate in unfamiliar territory. You can sit too, Jake offered. There's enough food for both of you. No, Vrax said firmly. Food for mate. For babies. I am provider. I do not eat when mate is hungry. Jake recognized the cultural pride in those words. He decided not to push the issue yet. Lisa emerged from the kitchen carrying trays of food. Steak, grilled chicken, fish fillets, and protein bars were piled high. She set everything on the table in front of Saria and then backed away quickly. Saria didn't hesitate. She began eating with desperate hunger, tearing into the meat with sharp teeth. The miners who had gathered to watch gasped at the sight. Jake watched carefully, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. After several minutes of eating, Saria slowed down. Color was returning to her scales. Her breathing became more steady. She looked up at Jake with intelligent green eyes. Thank you, she said clearly. You have saved 3 lives today. My people will not forget this kindness. How far along are you? Jake asked. 6 weeks from hatching. My eggs need constant nutrition now or they will not develop properly. When our ship failed, we had no choice but to seek help. She glanced at Vrax. It shamed my mate greatly to ask for charity. The Draconeer do not beg. But he loves me and our children more than he loves his pride. Vrax looked away, his scaled face showing clear discomfort. Jake felt a surge of respect for both of them. There's no shame in asking for help when you need it. That's what decent beings do. They help each other. More food arrived. Saria continued eating, though more slowly now. Between bites, she asked questions about the station, the mining operation, and the food preparation. Her intelligence was obvious. This was not just any Draconeer. This was someone educated and curious. As Jake watched her eat and listened to her speak, he began to wonder if this unexpected arrival might turn into something more than just a simple act of charity. Something in Saria's sharp questions and analytical mind suggested possibilities he hadn't considered yet. But for now, the important thing was that she was eating. She was alive. Her babies would survive. Jake smiled slightly. Whatever happened next, at least he had done the right thing today. 3 days had passed since the dragons arrived at mining station Zeta 7. Saria ate regularly now, her strength returning with each meal. Her scales had regained their bright green shine, and she moved with more confidence. But Vrax remained a problem. The proud Draconeer male refused to eat anything he hadn't earned. He stood guard over his mate during meals but wouldn't touch food himself. Jake watched him growing weaker each day and knew something had to change. I need someone to fix the thermal regulators in Section C, Jake announced during breakfast on the 4th day. He looked directly at Vrax. The temperature there gets hot enough to melt human skin. I can't send my people down there without better equipment, but that equipment won't arrive for 2 weeks. Can your species handle extreme heat? Vrax straightened up, his golden eyes showing interest for the first time. Yes, Draconeer skin resists heat. Our homeworld has lava rivers. We swim in them as children. Then I have a job for you. Standard mining rate, paid in meal credits. You interested? Understanding dawned in Vrax's eyes. This wasn't charity. This was honest work for honest pay. His pride could accept this. Yes, I work for you. Good, report to Chris Palmer in the maintenance bay after breakfast. He'll show you what needs fixing. Saria watched this exchange with a slight smile. When Vrax finally left with Chris, she turned to Jake. That was kind of you. My mate is suffering, but his honor would not allow him to accept free food. I actually do need those regulators fixed, Jake said honestly. If Vrax can handle the heat, he'll be doing us a real favor. Lisa brought another plate of food to the table. This time it wasn't just meat. She had prepared a spicy stew, some bread, and a type of fruitcake. Saria tried the stew first and her eyes widened with pleasure. This is excellent. What spices did you use? Lisa seemed surprised by the question. Pepper, cumin, something called dragon root. It's a local plant we found on the asteroid. We tested it and found it was safe to eat. Dragon root? Saria's interest sharpened. Can you show me this plant? An hour later, Jake found himself standing in the station's small greenhouse with Syria and Lisa. The dragon female studied the plants carefully, her clawed fingers surprisingly gentle as she examined leaves and stems. "This is not actually dragon root," Syria announced. "This is a relative of starflower, a plant that grows on 17 different worlds. It's valuable. Very valuable. Pharmaceutical companies pay high prices for it." Lisa and Jake exchanged glances. "We've been using it in cooking," Lisa said weakly. "It's safe to eat and tastes good, so that's fine. But you're sitting on a fortune here. This greenhouse alone contains plants worth more than 3 months of your mining profits." Jake felt his head spin. "Are you sure?" "I negotiated trade deals for 5 years before I mated with Vrax. I know valuable plants when I see them." Syria smiled, showing her sharp teeth. "You helped me. Let me help you. I can connect you with buyers who will pay fair prices." Over the next few days, Syria became increasingly involved in the station's operations. She spent mornings in the kitchen with Lisa, optimizing meal plans and reducing food waste. She had a remarkable memory and could calculate complex numbers in her head. Within 2 days, she had reduced the station's food costs by 30%, while actually improving the quality and variety of meals. The miners noticed. Good food made everyone happier. People started looking forward to meals instead of just tolerating them. They also started looking at Syria differently. She wasn't just a scary alien anymore. She was the reason their lunch tasted better. In the afternoons, Syria reviewed the station's financial records. Jake gave her access reluctantly at first, but her insights were too valuable to ignore. She found problems he hadn't even known existed. "You're paying twice the market rate for basic supplies," she told him one day, pointing at his computer screen. "This supply company is overcharging you badly." "They're the only company that delivers this far out," Jake explained. "No, they're not. There are 3 other companies that service this sector. I know because I negotiated with 2 of them in my old job." Syria's claws clicked against the keyboard as she pulled up information. "Here, this company offers better prices and faster delivery, and this one specializes in mining equipment. They'll give you a 20% discount for bulk orders." Jake stared at the screen.
"How did you find all this?"
"Trade networks. Business connections. I may be pregnant and stuck on your station, but I still have friends across the galaxy. Friends who owe me favors," she smiled again. "I'm bored, Jake Morrison. Let me help your station. It will give me something to do while I wait for my eggs to hatch." Meanwhile, Vrax was making his own impact. Chris Palmer, the chief engineer, discovered that the Draconeer's strength and heat resistance made him perfect for dangerous repair work. Jobs that would have taken days with proper safety equipment, Vrax completed in hours. "He's amazing," Chris told Jake enthusiastically. "He can bend metal with his bare hands, and he doesn't even feel temperatures that would kill us. Today he fixed a coolant leak inside a running fusion reactor, just reached in and welded the pipe shut while the reactor was active." The other miners started to relax around the dragons. Children from the few families on the station were especially curious. They asked Syria endless questions about her scales, her wings, and the eggs growing inside her. She answered patiently, often teaching them about dragon culture and biology. But not everyone was happy about the dragon's presence. Danny Cooper remained suspicious. He watched Vrax carefully whenever the Draconeer was near important equipment. Some older miners who remembered the wars grumbled about having lizards on their station. Then Karen Wells arrived. She was a corporate inspector, sent from Earth to conduct a routine audit of the station's operations. She was a thin woman with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she found everything unsatisfactory. She arrived in the middle of the afternoon shift and immediately began touring the facility. When she walked into the mess hall and saw Syria sitting at a table, reviewing supply contracts on a tablet, Karen stopped dead. "What is that doing here?" she demanded. Jake, who was having lunch nearby, stood up quickly. "That is Syria, a refugee who needed help. She's been assisting us with logistics and supply management." "A Draconeer living on a human mining station?" Karen's voice rose sharply. "This is a massive security violation. Do you have any idea how many regulations you're breaking?" "She was starving," Jake said firmly. "She was pregnant and her ship failed. I helped her. That's what humans do. We help people in need. She's not people. She's an alien. A dangerous one. The Draconeer killed thousands of humans 20 years ago." Syria stood up slowly. She was taller than Karen, and when she spread her wings slightly, she looked enormous. But her voice remained calm and professional. 20 years ago, there were border wars. Both humans and Draconair died. Both sides committed violence. But that was 20 years ago, Inspector Wells. Times change. People change. She gestured at the tablet. I have spent the last 3 days improving this station's efficiency by 18%. I have reduced costs and improved worker satisfaction. I have broken no laws and threatened no one. Karen's face reddened. I don't care what you've done. You don't belong here. Foreman Morrison, you have 1 week to remove these aliens from this station, or I will recommend your immediate termination and the station's closure for security violations. 1 week? Jake repeated, his anger rising. 1 week. Prove to me that having aliens here benefits this station more than it endangers it. Otherwise, they leave and you face serious consequences. Karen turned on her heel and marched out of the mess hall. Jake sat down heavily. Around him, miners muttered angrily. They had grown to like Syria and respect Vrax. The idea of forcing them to leave felt wrong. Syria placed a gentle claw on Jake's shoulder. Don't worry. I have 1 week to prove our worth. That's more than enough time. What are you going to do? Show that inspector exactly what a Draconair trade negotiator can accomplish when properly motivated. Syria's eyes gleamed with determination. She wants proof? I'll give her proof that will make her corporation beg us to stay. Jake looked up at her and saw the same sharp intelligence that had first caught his attention. Syria wasn't just a refugee anymore. She was about to become a force to be reckoned with. All right, he said. Show me what you can do. Syria smiled, and this time it looked less like friendliness and more like a predator preparing to hunt. Karen Wells had made a serious mistake. She had challenged a pregnant dragon who had something to prove. This was going to be interesting. Syria didn't waste time. The morning after Karen Wells issued her ultimatum, the dragon female was already working before most miners finished breakfast. Jake found her in his office, surrounded by data screens and making calls to contacts across the galaxy. Good morning, she said without looking up. I've renegotiated your supply contracts. The new deals will save you 40,000 credits per month. I'm currently talking to 3 mining equipment companies about bulk purchase discounts. Jake blinked sleep from his eyes. It's 6 in the morning. I know. I've been working since 4. Pregnancy makes me wake early. She finally looked at him, her green scales bright in the office lights. Jake, your station has been running inefficiently for years. Not because you're bad at your job, but because you're a foreman, not a business manager. You know, mining. I know trade. Together we can make this station very profitable. Karen wants results in a week. She'll have them in 3 days. Syria turned back to her screens. Now go eat breakfast. You look tired. Over the next 72 hours, the station transformed. Syria worked almost without stopping, pausing only to eat and rest briefly. Her mind seemed to work at incredible speed, processing information and making connections that Jake would never have seen. First, she completely rebuilt the station's supply chain. Instead of ordering from expensive middlemen, she established direct relationships with manufacturers. She negotiated better prices by combining orders with 3 other mining stations in the sector, creating a bulk purchasing group that gave everyone more negotiating power. Second, she examined the mining operation itself. Jake took her down to the dig sites, where massive machines tore valuable minerals from the asteroid's surface. Syria studied the patterns, took measurements, and asked hundreds of questions. Then she spent an entire night running calculations. You're mining in the wrong places, she announced the next morning. Excuse me. Chris Palmer looked offended. He had designed the current mining pattern himself. Not wrong exactly, Syria corrected herself. Inefficient. Look at this. She pulled up a 3D model of the asteroid on the main screen. You're following the surface veins of ore. That's safe and it works. But under here, there's a much richer deposit. It's deeper, which is why you missed it. But if you shift your drilling pattern by 40 degrees and go down instead of across, you'll increase your yield by at least 20%. Chris studied the model, his expression changing from defensive to thoughtful. That's based on Draconair geological surveys. Yes, my people have been mining asteroids for 3,000 years. We learned some tricks. Syria's tail swished behind her. I'm not saying your method is bad. I'm saying there's a better method you didn't know about. Chris looked at Jake. The foreman nodded. Try it. If Syria's wrong, we lose a few days. If she's right, we increase profits significantly. They shifted the drilling pattern that afternoon. By evening, the results were clear. The new dig sites were producing mineral ore of higher quality and greater quantity than their previous best yields. The miners cheered when they saw the numbers. But Saria wasn't finished. She discovered something that shocked everyone. "The corporation has been underpaying you," she told Jake, showing him complex market analysis. "The rare earth minerals you mine here are worth 3 times what they're paying you for them. The contract says." The contract was signed 7 years ago, when market prices were different. "There's a clause here that says prices should be reviewed annually based on galactic market rates. They never did that review. They just kept paying you the old rate while selling your minerals for much higher prices. You've been cheated out of millions of credits." Jake felt anger burn in his chest. "Can we prove this?" "I already have. I contacted a trade lawyer friend. She's preparing documentation. If you want, you can renegotiate your contract with the corporation. If they refuse, you can sell your minerals on the open market instead." Saria smiled grimly. "Inspector Wells works for the corporation. Wait until she sees this information. It will be very awkward for her." While Saria worked on business matters, Vrax proved his worth in other ways. The big Draconeer had become friends with Chris and the maintenance crew. His ability to work in extreme conditions meant repairs that would normally shut down equipment for days could be done in hours. But Vrax's biggest contribution came unexpectedly. One of the main drilling machines broke down completely. A critical component deep inside the engine had failed. To reach it, someone would need to climb into a space barely large enough for a human child, while the surrounding machinery was still hot enough to cause serious burns. "We have to wait for it to cool down," Chris said. "That'll take 2 days, and we can't mine without that drill." "I can fit," Vrax said. He looked at the narrow opening. "I can handle the heat. It's not just hot. It's cramped. You're 8 feet tall. Dragons are flexible." To prove his point, Vrax twisted his body in ways that seemed impossible for something so large. "Show me what needs fixing." 30 minutes later, Vrax emerged from the machine holding the broken part. His scales were blackened from heat and he was breathing hard, but he was smiling. "Fixed. Machine works now." They tested the drill. It roared to life perfectly. The miners watching erupted in cheers. Chris clapped Vrax on the shoulder, forgetting for a moment that he was touching a creature who could easily tear him apart. As news of the dragon's contributions spread through the station, attitudes shifted. Even miners who had been suspicious began to admit that Vrax and Saria were helpful. Children followed Saria around, asking her to tell them stories about other worlds. Vrax taught interested workers about Draconeer engineering techniques. Amy Rodriguez, a young miner who had been terrified when the dragons first arrived, became Saria's closest friend. The two females spent evenings together, talking about pregnancy and child-rearing. Amy was fascinated by how different Draconeer reproduction was from human reproduction. "You'll lay eggs?" Amy asked, her eyes wide. "3 of them, most likely. They'll stay inside me for another few weeks, then I'll lay them in a nest. After that, they need constant heat for 2 months until they hatch." Saria rubbed her swollen belly gently. "I'm worried about that part. We don't have proper nest materials here." "We'll figure something out," Amy promised. "Everyone here will help. You'll see." On the 3rd day, Saria called a meeting with Jake and Karen Wells. The inspector arrived looking annoyed, clearly expecting to enforce her ultimatum. Instead, she found herself facing a presentation that left her speechless. Saria displayed charts, graphs, and financial projections on multiple screens. "In 3 days, I have increased this station's efficiency by 23%. Monthly operating costs have dropped by 42%, while production has increased by 21%. The new mining pattern I designed will increase long-term yields by at least 20%, possibly more." Karen stared at the numbers, her face showing confusion and disbelief. "Additionally," Saria continued, "I have documented how your corporation has been underpaying this station for 7 years. The total amount owed is approximately 12 million credits. I have contacted trade authorities about this violation of contract law." Karen's face went pale. "You can't prove that." "I can and have. The documentation is already filed with the Galactic Trade Commission. You have 30 days to correct the payments or face legal action and substantial fines." Saria's smile showed her sharp teeth. "Of course, if the corporation is unhappy with my findings, I could be convinced to work as a consultant to help them avoid future legal problems. For appropriate compensation, naturally." Jake watched Karen's expression change from anger to calculation. He could almost see her thinking about how this would look to her superiors. She had come here to remove security risks. Instead, she had discovered that the security risks had uncovered massive financial discrepancies and improved station performance dramatically. "I need to make some calls," Karen said finally. She left the room quickly, her confidence gone. Jake turned to Saria. "You planned this from the beginning?" "Of course. Inspector Wells gave me a challenge. I used her own corporation's failures to prove that removing us would be very stupid." Saria stretched her wings, wincing slightly as her pregnancy made the movement uncomfortable. "Humans have a saying, I believe. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight." "You brought a cannon," Jake said with admiration. "I brought facts and numbers, much more powerful than weapons." She looked at him seriously. "Jake, I meant what I said about consulting. The station can be much more than a simple mining operation. With proper management and my connections, we could turn it into a trading hub, a place where different species meet and do business. That would be far more profitable than just digging rocks." Jake thought about this. The idea was ambitious, maybe too ambitious. But then again, 3 days ago he wouldn't have believed one pregnant dragon could transform his entire operation. "Let's see what the corporation says first," he decided. They didn't have to wait long. 2 hours later, Karen returned. Her expression was carefully neutral, now all business. "I spoke with corporate headquarters. They're very interested in your findings about the contract payments. They're also impressed with the efficiency improvements." She paused. "They want to negotiate a settlement regarding the payment discrepancies. They're also offering you a position as a consultant." "Me?"
Jake was surprised. "No. Her." Karen pointed. 2 weeks after Karen Wells left the station, life had settled into a new routine.
Saria's contract was official. She now had an office next to Jake's, complete with specialized furniture built to support her size and weight. Frax worked full-time in the maintenance department, earning respect from every human who worked with him. The station ran more smoothly than ever before, but Jake noticed Saria was slowing down. Her movements became more careful. She took more breaks. Her scales, usually bright green, sometimes looked pale by evening. "Are you feeling all right?" he asked one morning when he found her sitting motionless at her desk. "The eggs are getting heavy," she admitted. "In Draconeer terms, I'm very close now. Maybe 1 more week until I need to lay them. Do you need anything? Special food? Medical attention?" Saria shook her head. "Not yet. When the time comes, I'll need extreme heat and certain minerals. But I have time to prepare." She smiled, though Jake could see the tiredness in her eyes. "Don't worry so much. Draconeer have been having babies for thousands of years." Jake wanted to believe her, but something felt wrong. That evening, he pulled Amy aside. The young woman had become Saria's closest friend and spent more time with the dragon than anyone else. "How is she really doing?" Jake asked. Amy bit her lip. "She's in pain. She doesn't say anything, but I can tell. The eggs are heavy and they're moving around inside her. She told me yesterday that Draconeer females usually rest for the last 2 weeks before laying, but she's still working because she doesn't want to seem weak." "That's ridiculous. She should rest if she needs to. Try telling her that. She's as stubborn as any human I've ever met." Jake made a decision. The next morning he went to Saria's office and found her reviewing supply orders. "You're taking time off. Starting now." Saria looked up in surprise. "Excuse me? You're pregnant and in pain. You need rest. That's an order from your boss." Jake crossed his arms. "I'm not negotiating this." For a moment, Saria looked like she might argue. Then her shoulders sagged slightly. "You're right. I've been pushing too hard. But there's so much work. The work will wait. Your health won't. Go rest. That's what we have medical leave for." Saria left reluctantly. Over the next few days, she stayed in the quarters the station had set up for her family. It was one of the larger rooms modified to accommodate Draconeer size and temperature preferences. Vrax spent every free moment with her, bringing her food and keeping her company. Amy visited daily, often bringing Lisa with her. The 3 females, 2 human and 1 dragon, formed an unlikely friendship. They talked about children, family, and life across different species. Lisa taught Saria human recipes. Saria told stories about distant worlds. Amy just enjoyed listening to both of them. Everything seemed fine until the 5th day. Jake was reviewing mining reports when his communicator buzzed urgently. It was Vrax, and the big dragon's voice carried pure panic. "Jake Morrison. Come quick. Saria, she is laying eggs. Too early. Something wrong." Jake ran. He grabbed Amy and Chris on the way, knowing he might need help. They reached Saria's quarters in less than 2 minutes. Inside, they found chaos. Saria was on the floor, curled around herself and breathing in harsh gasps. Her scales had turned almost white. Vrax knelt beside her, his hands hovering uselessly, clearly terrified. "What happened?" Jake demanded. "Eggs coming early," Vrax said, his standard breaking down in his panic. She say something wrong. Eggs not ready but coming anyway. She need heat. She need minerals. She need Draconeer, doctor." "We have nothing!" Jake's mind raced. The nearest Draconeer medical facility was 3 days away by fastest ship. They didn't have 3 days. They probably didn't have 3 hours. Amy knelt beside Saria. "Tell me what you need. Tell me exactly what's wrong." Saria's voice was weak but clear. "The eggs are coming too early. Something I ate or stress, I don't know. Doesn't matter. They're coming now. I need intense heat to keep them stable. I need calcium and iron supplements of specific types. And I need someone who knows Draconeer physiology to guide the laying process." "We don't have a Draconeer, doctor," Chris said. "Then I'll have to guide you through it myself." Saria gasped as another contraction hit her. "But I can't think clearly through the pain. You have to listen carefully and do exactly what I say." Jake made quick decisions. "Chris, prepare one of the geothermal chambers. Make it as hot as you can safely manage. Amy, get Lisa and gather all the mineral supplements we have. Saria, tell her exactly what you need. Vrax, help Chris carry your mate down to the chamber." Everyone moved at once. The next hour was controlled chaos. Chris and Vrax converted a geothermal chamber, normally used for testing equipment at high temperatures, into a makeshift birthing room. They lined the floor with insulating materials and installed temperature controls. Lisa ground up raw ore under Saria's instructions, creating a mixture of minerals that the dragon could consume to help the eggs develop properly. It looked horrible, like drinking dirt, but Saria swallowed it without complaint. Amy stayed by Saria's side constantly, helping move her, supporting her weight, and following her medical instructions. The young human woman showed no fear, only determination to help her friend. Jake coordinated everything, making sure each person knew their role. He also made the difficult decision to tell the other miners what was happening. Soon the entire station knew that Saria was in labor and that it was going wrong. The geothermal chamber was ready. Vrax carried his mate down there, moving with desperate care. The heat hit them like a wall when the door opened. It was hot enough to make humans sweat heavily, even with protective gear. For Saria, it was barely warm enough. "I need it hotter," she said through gritted teeth. "My body temperature has to reach 45 degrees or the eggs won't survive the laying." Chris looked at Jake with concern. "That's hot enough to cause serious burns to humans. We can be in there, but not for long. Then we work in shifts. Amy, you're with her first. I'll relieve you in 20 minutes. The labor lasted 14 hours. It was the longest night of Jake's life. He and Amy took turns staying with Saria in the brutal heat, following her instructions as she guided them through the complex process of Draconeer egg laying. Chris monitored the temperature constantly, making minute adjustments to keep it perfect. Lisa prepared special nutrient drinks that Saria needed to maintain her strength. Vrax stayed the entire time, refusing to leave despite the heat that was almost too much even for a Draconeer male. His mate needed him and nothing else mattered. The entire station held its breath. Miners who should have been sleeping stayed awake, gathering in the mess hall to wait for news. Children asked their parents if the Dragon Lady would be okay. Even the few miners who had never liked having aliens on the station found themselves hoping desperately that Saria would survive. The first egg came just after midnight. Saria screamed, a sound that echoed through the chamber and made Jake's blood run cold. But Amy was there, supporting her, encouraging her, following the instructions Saria had given earlier. The egg was the size of a human head, covered in a hard shell that gleamed with rainbow colors in the chamber's lights. Vrax carefully moved it to a prepared nest area where heat lamps kept it at the right temperature. The second egg came 2 hours later. This one was harder, and Saria's strength was fading. Jake and Amy had to support her weight entirely, keeping her in the right position while her body did the work it needed to do. The third egg came at dawn. By then, Saria was barely conscious. Her scales had gone gray and her breathing was shallow. But when she heard Vrax tell her the third egg was healthy and in the nest, she managed a weak smile. "Good," she whispered. "All three safe." Then she collapsed. Jake and Amy carried her out of the geothermal chamber. Her body temperature was dangerously high even for a Draconeer. They had prepared a cooling room next door, where they could gradually lower her temperature without shocking her system. For 6 hours, they monitored her vital signs. Chris had rigged up medical sensors adapted from human equipment, and they watched the numbers carefully. Syria's heart rate was slow but steady. Her breathing was shallow but regular. She was alive but barely. Vrax sat beside her the entire time, holding her hand gently in his claws. The big dragon who had seemed so fearsome when he first arrived now looked small and scared. Jake realized that under all the scales and teeth, Vrax was just a father worried about his mate and children. At midday, Syria's eyes opened. She looked around slowly, trying to figure out where she was. "The eggs?" she asked immediately. "All 3 are healthy," Jake told her. "They're in the nest chamber, temperature controlled and monitored. Vrax checks on them every hour." Relief flooded Syria's face. "And the station? Did I damage anything? Disrupt operations?" Jake almost laughed. She had nearly died giving birth, and she was worried about the mining schedule. "The station is fine. We're all just glad you're alive." "How long was the labor?" 14 hours, Syria closed her eyes. "Longer than normal. The eggs came too early. Another week and it would have been easier." She looked at Jake again. "Thank you, you and Amy and everyone. You saved 3 lives today. 4 lives counting mine." "You saved yourself," Jake said honestly. "You guided us through everything." 2 months passed like a dream. Syria recovered fully from the difficult birth, her scales returning to their brilliant green color. She returned to work, though now she divided her time between her office and the nest chamber, where 3 eggs waited to hatch. The eggs had become the station's most popular attraction. Miners on break would stop by the viewing window to watch them. The eggs moved sometimes, rocking slightly as the baby dragons inside grew stronger. Children pressed their faces to the glass, hoping to see one crack open. Jake found himself standing at that window often. He still couldn't quite believe everything that had happened. In less than 3 months, his quiet mining station had transformed into something entirely new. News services from across the galaxy sent reporters to cover the story. Other species began expressing interest in visiting or working at Zeta 7. The corporation, seeing opportunity, had approved a massive expansion. The station would triple in size over the next year. It would become an official interspecies trade hub, a place where different cultures could meet and do business safely. Jake was now overseeing the construction plans, with Syria advising on what different species would need. "We'll need different atmosphere zones," Syria explained, pointing at blueprints spread across Jake's desk. "Some species breathe oxygen like humans and Draconeer. Others need methane or chlorine. We can't mix them, so we need sealed sections." "This is getting complicated," Jake admitted. "Building bridges always is, but it's worth doing." Syria smiled. 5 years from now, this station will be known across the galaxy. Species that have never worked together will be trading here, learning from each other, maybe even becoming friends." Danny Cooper, who had been suspicious of the dragons at first, was now one of their strongest supporters. He had learned basic Draconeer language from Vrax and spent his free time studying alien cultures. "I was an idiot to judge them before I knew them," he told Jake one day. "Vrax is one of the best people I've ever met, and Syria is smarter than anyone I've ever worked with." "You learned and changed your mind," Jake said. "That's what matters." The hatching happened on a Tuesday morning. Jake was reviewing supply orders when his communicator buzzed with a message from Amy. 3 simple words: "The eggs are moving." He ran to the nest chamber. Half the station seemed to have the same idea. People crowded around the viewing window, watching with excitement. Inside the chamber, Syria and Vrax waited beside the nest. Both parents looked nervous and excited. The first egg cracked with a sound like breaking pottery. A tiny snout pushed through the opening, followed by a small clawed hand. The baby dragon was bright red like Vrax, barely the size of a human infant. It tumbled out of the egg and immediately began chirping loudly, demanding attention. Vrax picked up his child with incredible gentleness, supporting its tiny body carefully. His golden eyes shone with tears. Jake had never seen a Draconeer cry before. He didn't know they could. The second egg hatched 10 minutes later. This baby was green like Syria, slightly smaller than its sibling. It was quieter, looking around with curious eyes before making any sound. The third egg took longer. For a moment, everyone worried something was wrong. Then it exploded outward. shell fragments flying in all directions. The third baby emerged looking annoyed as if hatching had been an inconvenience. This one had scales that mixed both parents' colors, alternating red and green in a pattern that looked like armor. The station erupted in cheers. People hugged each other. Children jumped up and down with excitement. Even the most serious miners had huge smiles on their faces. Lisa broke out the celebration food she had been preparing for days. The mess hall filled with people eating, drinking, and talking excitedly about the new arrivals. Amy couldn't stop smiling. Chris kept saying we helped deliver them to anyone who would listen. Later that day, Saria invited Jake into the nest chamber. Up close, the baby dragons were even more incredible. Their scales were soft, their wings were tiny folds of skin, and their eyes were huge in their small faces. "Would you like to hold one?" Saria asked. Jake felt his heart skip. "Is that allowed? You helped bring them into this world." "Of course it's allowed." She carefully picked up the red baby and placed it in Jake's arms. "This is our son. We haven't named him yet. In Draconeer culture, we wait 1 week to make sure the baby is healthy before naming." The baby dragon chirped and grabbed Jake's finger with one tiny claw. Its scales felt warm and surprisingly soft. Jake felt something break open in his chest, some hard knot of emotion he hadn't even known was there. "He's perfect," Jake said, his voice rough. "He is. They all are." Saria looked at her 3 children with obvious love. "They'll grow up here on this station. They'll learn human language and Draconeer language. They'll have friends of both species. They'll never know the hatred and fear that divided our people in the past." "Is that important to you?" "It's everything to me." Saria's voice was intense. "I want my children to live in a galaxy where species help each other, where a desperate refugee can find kindness, where a pregnant mother can give birth safely with help from strangers who became friends." "You gave me that, Jake Morrison. You gave my family a future." Jake felt uncomfortable with such praise. "I just did what was right." "Exactly. And that's what makes it special. Many species talk about honor and righteousness, but humans actually do the right thing even when it's difficult or dangerous, even when there's no profit in it. That's rare in the galaxy." Over the next week, the baby dragons grew with incredible speed. They doubled in size and began making more complex sounds. The green one seemed to like Amy and would chirp happily whenever she visited. The red one was brave and curious, trying to explore everything. The mixed color one was stubborn and independent, already showing a strong personality. The naming ceremony took place the following Tuesday. Syria and Vrax had decided to blend Draconeer and human traditions. The ceremony would happen in the mess hall rather than a private nest, and humans would participate rather than just watch. The entire station gathered. Even people on mining duty came back early, not wanting to miss this historic moment. Syria stood at the front of the room with Vrax beside her. The 3 babies sat in a special basket, looking around at all the strange faces watching them. "In Draconeer tradition," Saria began, speaking clearly so everyone could understand, "children are named by their parents with guidance from the clan elders. But we are far from our clan and we have no elders here. Instead, we have something better. We have friends. We have a community that saved our lives and welcomed us when we had nowhere else to go." She picked up the red baby. "This is our first son. He is brave and curious. He should have a name that reflects strength. Vrax and I have decided to name him Rex, which means king in an ancient human language. We chose a human name because humans helped bring him into this world." Applause filled the room. The baby Rex chirped loudly as if he approved of his new name. Saria picked up the green baby. "This is our daughter. She is thoughtful and gentle. We name her Luna after Earth's moon. Amy told me that humans see the moon as beautiful and constant." "That fits our daughter perfectly." More applause. Amy wiped tears from her eyes, clearly moved by the honor. Finally, Saria picked up the mixed-color baby. "This is our second son. He is strong-willed and independent. We name him Cole, a human name that means victory, because his birth was a victory over fear and isolation. His existence proves that different species can create something beautiful together." The applause was deafening now. People cheered and whistled. The 3 baby dragons seemed startled by all the noise and huddled together in their basket. After the ceremony, there was a celebration. Lisa had prepared an incredible meal that included both human and Draconeer dishes. Music played. People danced. For one evening, all the stress and hard work of running a mining station disappeared. There was only joy. Jake stood with Saria and Varax watching the celebration. "You've changed everything," he told them. "This station will never be the same. Is that bad?" Varax asked. His standard had improved dramatically over the past months. "No. It's good. It's better than good. It's exactly what we needed." Jake raised his glass. "To the future. To friendship between species. To the children who will grow up never knowing the old hatred." They drank together, dragon and human. Friends in a way that would have been impossible just months ago. The celebration continued late into the night. When it finally ended, Jake walked back to his quarters feeling more content than he had in years. He had come to this station expecting to oversee mining operations and eventually retire. Instead, he had helped create something that might change the galaxy. The next morning brought news that validated everything they had accomplished. 3 more species had formally requested permission to send representatives to mining station Zeta 7. They wanted to learn about the interspecies cooperation program. They wanted to see if what worked here could work elsewhere. Saria handled the negotiations with her usual skill. Within a week, she had arranged visits from a Torlan delegation, some Nexian traders, and a group of Kelvin scientists. Each species had different needs and concerns, but all were curious about this place where natural enemies had become partners. The Torlan ambassador arrived first. He was a tall being with blue skin and